Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legends of Tomorrow, a great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, obviously, we'll kind of divide this up. Well, first and foremost, we had a majority of the team, obviously that being John, Sarah, Ava, Ray, and Mick, going to 1947, Los Angeles specifically because obviously there's a time situation going there because we end up finding out that Bugsy Siegel actually died, but he came back, so he's one of the encores, which, dude, I'm loving it. Like I said, mysteries, and now we got encores. I love it. But the fact of the matter is, I should also really quickly bring up the fact is obviously at the end of the last episode, John went to hell to see Astra, and he's trying to get Astra to kind of change her mind, but for her, it's like, no, I'm not going to, like, for the first time, I have power, and I'm not going to let it go. So the fact of the matter is, the only way you're going to stop me is by killing me. And obviously, John's thinking about it because it's like, the girl he knew, the girl he's went through so much to save, there's no part of her left. Her humanity's gone. So it's probably thinking, like, maybe that's the only way. Side note, something I was also thinking about, too, I didn't even think about before either. Obviously, we've got peeks into hell. Obviously, this wasn't our first season. Obviously, last season was our first peek into hell and everything. So I'm like, well, because obviously we know in this continuity, in the grand scheme of things, Lucifer exists. It existed on Earth 6666, but obviously, like, I don't know if I did too many sixes. 666. What I meant to say, if I did say more than 3, regardless, tangents and stuff like. But the fact of the matter is, I was curious because obviously we've seen hell on Lucifer. It's very different from hell on Legends of Tomorrow. So obviously that comes down to how this whole post-crisis thing goes down. Like, it's stuff from Earth 666. Is that here on Earth Prime? Probably not. It's probably not going to be like until like, oh, it's like, and the multiverse spread out again. And lo and behold, Lucifer on Earth 666 is back. So that's probably what that show's going to be. Because it makes me wonder, it's like, well, hell doesn't have a Lucifer right now. It's like, well, we know Lucifer on his Earth was kind of kicking it, doing his thing. So it's like, makes you wonder what happened to the Lucifer in this continuity. Which is interesting because, in fact, to be fair, like, Lucifer's cosmic enough to know, like, I mean, because that's his thing. He can travel between different realms. That's actually what he does in the comic books. He doesn't really stay on Earth. Like, my understanding in the comic books, he goes to Earth and LA specifically, but I think he does bounce between different realms. And obviously he knows John, even though this is John from a different Earth, because that was John from Earth 1 when he was John, that was Lucifer on 666. So Lucifer might legitimately be the devil for all of hell, across all of the multiverse. Like, you know, he's a cosmic being, so it could potentially work. Like, that's what I'm thinking, but maybe I'm getting too caught up in the details. But it's really interesting when you think about that. So maybe that's why she's able to do what she did, because the Earth that Lucifer got. But I mean, that was also something I was wondering about. Would the antimatter wave work on someone cosmic like him? He's a celestial, but, you know, maybe that still doesn't matter because, you know, once again, like I said, I'm getting too caught up in the semantics. It just made me, start thinking about that. But obviously, I really liked a lot of the aesthetic of this episode too. Like, it's like got that very noir detective feel. I mean, especially the legitimate time frame in 1947. It literally reminds me of the game L.A. Noire. I mean, and I like that. I even love John putting on his, like, American accent and stuff like that. I even love Ray kind of looking at him like, oh, you're just dropping that out of nowhere. But like, because that lady Jeannie shows up and she's like, oh, like, my boyfriend Benjamin Siegel, Bugsy, but he doesn't like being called Bugsy, is back, and now he's basically blackmailing a lot of people, and he's kind of like trying to gain more power. Like, he's so much more ambitious, because it is a thing of like, well, you've literally gone to the other side and come back, and you're like, obviously different people handle that in different ways. It's like, I have a second chance. I'm gonna live life to the fullest. He's like, because he was like, he had nothing to be afraid of anymore because he's literally been to hell and back. So, like I said, different people handle that hell situation very differently than others do, So there's that whole situation, and there's so many levels to this whole situation. For one, I love how Ava's so bummed the entire episode, because it's like, okay, like, her and Mick are supposed to stay behind, and bat down the hatches at the ship and everything, and she's like, yeah, we got, Sarah's trusted me enough to give me the job at the ship and stuff like that, and Mick is like, yeah, being left back here to do nothing, which is interesting, because I feel like when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, as the series has progressed, Mick has done less and less, and I love it. That's why I was actually surprised he took part in a crisis event. just because it's just like, like I said, it just seems like Mick's just fine with just kind of, well, at least he had writing, but now he doesn't have that anymore because he gave, Rebecca Stone, like he gave that moniker to Mona to kind of do with. So it's kind of like all he can do is like read and relax. So he's almost fine with the doing nothing job because it's like, yeah. But obviously it doesn't suit well with Ava because like, all right, we're at the, we're at the bar, we're here. She's like, oh, it's like this and that. It's like, oh, the guard's here. Like she's examining the whole place. I'm like, oh, Ava, slow down. You're trying to be professional? Ew, gross. This is the Legends. We don't go that serious with our investigations and when we're dealing with trying to fix time. I skipped over it too because John was like, yeah, this whole Astra thing is my fault, which they were like, hell yeah. For the first time, it's not our fault because literally everything that's ever gone wrong in this series has been a byproduct of something we've done. But for the first time, it's not our fault. It's technically John's fault, but we're not trying to rub it in John's face. This is someone else's problem. This is more so Astra than it is John. But still, like, yeah, it's not our fault. I just love that. And like I said, for the first time in the series, it's legitimately not their fault. And so that's definitely got to feel good. But nevertheless, but Ava's, kind of worried because she ended up talking about the fact is she had to move out her apartment. So she's kind of homeless right now, staying on a ship, which obviously Mick is kind of like, oh, no responsibilities. Because the fact of the matter is, it's like because Ava was literally the head of an organization. Now she's kicking it with the Legends. And I don't think she really considers herself part of the Legends because it's like, well, the Legends is kind of my girlfriend's thing. And I'm kind of kicking it with my girlfriend. So I'm kind of almost like squatting with the Legends I'm squatting on the Wave Rider. So I think that's kind of how Ava feels. Because like I said, the Time Bureau was kind of her baby and she kind of feels like she is like, well, especially because she inherited it from Rip and that being a whole thing. And now it's like, she kind of feels a little lost because she's like, oh, where do I go? Like, it's like the Legends are doing their thing, but I think this season's going to be about her finding her place amongst the Legends, which obviously she fits in magnificently because like I said, she was getting bummed because Mick was talking about the fact is that like her like livelihood, her job and everything and all that responsibility is gone, and she kind of started drinking more. And it's just kind of like, and Mick's just kind of sitting there, just taking things in stride. A lot of interesting things. Obviously, you have Ray pretending to be a cop and everything. You have Sarah kind of seducing Bugsy. So that was really interesting. And it's like, I mean, to be fair, maybe it stems from like her, I don't know. Part of me likes to think because of like, her assassin training, she knows how to kind of really like lay it on thick to kind of draw a target in, so I think because of like her League of Assassin training and stuff like it kind of plays in there. But it's like, oh, look at like, especially like the conversation they have. I was like, the innuendos and just, like Sarah's getting in there. It's like, oh, and like I said, it's just like the aesthetic of this episode was just so neat as well. But it was also interesting because, obviously because he died, Bugsy is basically a zombie, so killing him is not going to be an easy thing. I mean, obviously they had to go through a lot to kill Rasputin, but even then they couldn't kill him because it turns out like even killing the Encores isn't enough because you kill them and send them back to hell, all it's going to do is bring them back. All that leaves is Astra an opportunity to bring them back. Granted, they have Rasputin literally bottled up, so there's no putting him back together right now until like eventually those probably most likely end up breaking and he reforms. But the fact of the matter is like they can't really kill, or at least with the Mithries, they could like send them back to hell and stuff like that, which they only did a handful. They never did it to a lot of them. But aside from all of that, so it's like, okay, so how do we gonna handle this? So they're just gonna capture them. Sadly, there's no longer a place like the Time Bureau where they kept their Mithries as a place to keep all their Encores. So that's definitely gonna be an interesting situation to see how they handle that going forward. But what I thought was kind of fascinating was the fact is that Jeannie and Constantine kind of had a thing. Because at first it's like, oh, she was acting like she was running from Bugsy. But then it's like she took money from Ray. Like, oh, I need money to get out of town. Bugsy paid for everything. But then lo and behold, she's right next to Bugsy. But it's like, oh, he's blackmailing her as well as a whole bunch of other people. Because John from the beginning can be like, yeah, I can tell she took you for a ride, Ray. You didn't realize you kind of got suckered. But obviously Jeannie is like, oh, the fact is you came here with that accent. She kind of sees through John. And it's like, all right, let's work together. It's like, you tell me where the files are and I'll help get that gun off of Bugsy, which, interesting enough, that gun basically, which it kind of makes me think of like is it Strife in the Darksider series? Because anytime, like, because War gets it first, but then Death gets it later on, it's Strife's gun. It's basically got supernatural bullets. It kind of reminds me of that. Basically, the bullets from Bugsy's gun are hellfire bullets, and when they hit you, they incinerate you. Because the interesting thing too is like Astra was like, anyone killed by those becomes people that Astra can own too. So the souls killed by her, the Encores, become souls that she gains, and obviously that gives her more power and wealth in the underworld in Hell. So that's a whole interesting thing. But I guess like I guess there's just I guess like the gun has a limited amount of bullets and there's no refilling it, or maybe Bugsy's the only one who can refill it. Like maybe his, they never really got into the ins and outs of it. It's not important. It just kind of makes me wonder just with the way things gotta play out. But regardless, it was interesting because like John and Ginny, because she was like, oh, how am I gonna get the gun off of Bugsy, and it's like, oh, whoa. The sad thing is too that Ray thought like, hey, I found the one Sullivan, hey, the one good cop. That turns out not to be the case, sadly. But it was a long list of interesting developments. It's like, oh, we need a distraction, and drunk Ava goes up there, and I'm like, she's doing a rendition of Poison. I'm like, oh, and it sounds so good. I'm like, yo, look at Ava doing her thing. And then people are walking out. Why are people walking out? I was like, oh, she's drunk and she's actually terrible, isn't she? And it cuts her, and I'm like, oh, Ava. And it's just kind of like, what was it later on? Bugsy's like, oh, like this lady up here and like making an idiot of herself. It's like, hey, that's my girlfriend. Sarah was like, that's my girlfriend you're talking about, and she's not embarrassing herself. And Mick is taking video and is like, yes, she is. I love it. That was interesting. I was like, oh, I felt so good. I was like, oh my God, like Ava sounds great. She's killing it. And it's like, oh, on stage. I'm like, side note, I should also reference, that is literally one of my, if not my favorite old school song. Like that's an old school classic. And I'm like, dude, that's like growing up, that's always been a song that like an oldie that I'm like, oh, I fucking love that song. It's so good. The damn beat and everything. It's like, dude, that song's just amazing. It's like I said, it's just one of my favorites. But nevertheless, I love that moment. Just she's going on and on and on, and just Sarah just kind of looking like, oh, look at my girl. It's like, should we stop her? And it's just like, nah, let her finish. And she's doing her thing on stage. I'm like, look at Ava, because they ended up, knocking Bugsy out because it was just a regular gun he had, because Jeannie was able to steal it from him. And obviously, John leads Ginny to the case, but she's decided she's going to take it for herself, because she's basically her entire life she's felt weak, and now she has an opportunity to have power. And it's like someone who's always been pushed around, kind of having to go by other people. It's not just Bugsy. She, Jeannie probably dealt with it her entire life, but Bugsy's just the most recent example of it. So she was tired of feeling weak and want to feel powerful. And I think in that moment, John, you definitely see the parallels to Astra. So and so that kind of, changes certain things later on, but I'll get to it. Like I said, it's kind of bummer because Ray's like, oh, and it's like, oh yeah, Sullivan's like, yeah, we're here to take care of that and her. It's like, wait, why are you going after her too? It's like, because for him, it's like she's collateral damage in this war, and it's like, it's because it turns out he's actually, just as much of a dirty cop as where everyone else is cool with Bugsy's. He's cool with the other mafia, like the other mafia gangsters that wanted, to remove Bugsy, because John was trying to tell her, like, you take over, you basically do this, you're literally going to put a target on your back. But for her, it's just like she was just too tired of being weak, so she ends up handing the gun over to John, but takes it. It's just kind of like, And sadly, because this is a noir story, like, legitimately let me know, like, any stories of this nature, I feel like they never end well. I feel like every noir story ends on a bummer, and it's just sadly Jeannie ends up dying. And I was kind of hoping they'd be able to do something about it, but it's like, despite everything, like, the fact of the matter is, like, stopping Sullivan and stuff like this, there was no stopping that. Like, even if you stop them, it's just it's a part of a much bigger issue of, like, that time, gangsters running rampant at the time. So it's like, there was no easy solution around that. So John was super pissed, so they were going to lock Bugsy up, but Bugsy, referencing Astra and stuff, pissed John off, so he goes back to hell. Go in there, bam, and even as he's firing, I'm counting off the bullets, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's like, oh, but Astra's like, oh, he won't never do it to me. And when he has the opportunity, John decides not to, because he's like, I'm going to save you. Because I think because of the whole genie situation, because for him, it's because he kind of gave up. He was just like, fine, whatever. He didn't take the opportunity to try and save her, and he saw what happened. And I think that inspired him to like, no, what happened to her, I'm not going to let happen to Astra. I have the opportunity to save you. Even if it takes me my entire life, like, I am going to save you. Rectify the mistake I made, damning your soul to hell in the first place. But what he does end up doing is killing Bugsy for Genie, because it's like, you made her that way. You made her life miserable. If you hadn't done that, she wouldn't have been in that position. She could have ran away. She could have had her life. But because you made her feel weak and miserable, she became like that. So. And because they were in hell, the moment, because once you kill someone like that, they're dead. Like, I guess their soul gets destroyed. That's kind of what that was supposed to represent. And even Astra was kind of surprised, because she was like, oh, you went soft. But John was like, yeah, not that soft. So that was kind of sad. So, but I think even that moment caught Astra off guard, because she wasn't expecting John to do that. So John tried to make it seem like, yeah, Astra was waiting for him, got the upper hand. That's why. But, Ray kind of comes and is like, no, dude, I get it. The fact of the matter is, he was like, if I'd given up on Nora, we wouldn't be the happy couple that we are right now. It's like, and John, it's like, the fact is, he's not willing to give up on Astra, and he sees that big dumb smile on Ray's face, and he's like, what's that for? He's like, I'm glad to know that there are still good guys out there, even if they're master of the dark arts and stuff like that. So I just thought that was kind of a neat element. So John never really likes to show it, but he because of his life and everything, he kind of like beats himself down over every mistake he's ever made, which he's literally in perfect company. The legends have made plenty of mistakes. I mean, hell, when you look at the Arrowverse in general, literally every hero has made mistakes. That comes with the territory, because superpowers or not, every being is flawed in some shape or form. People make mistakes, but once again, he's kicking it with a crew who's literally, once again, the 3 preceding seasons have all been ramifications of mistakes that they've made, in some shape or form. So that's why I'm just thinking, it's just, like I said, he's in perfect company. So while all of that is going down, right, there was a whole situation with Ava I should also finish up with too, because she was like, oh my god, I was amazing, she's still drunk, because even Mick is like, yeah, she's probably not going to remember this anyway. And the fact of the matter is, it's like, did you guys record it? And Mick is like, yeah, about to say yes, but Sarah takes the phone and is like, yeah, nope. It's like, because she doesn't want to embarrass Ava, and it's like, oh, you had fun, babe? That's awesome. It's just like, it's sweet and adorable. I love it. So there's that. Then the other side of the episode is obviously Nate dealing with the fact that he's remembering Zarya, and especially when he sees Behrad, and it's like, it flashes between him and Zarya, and it's like, wait, what? He's thinking he's seeing stuff, but Behrad's like, yo, bro, did you get my stash again? Which is like, so that must be, which is, once again, it's sad because we'll never get to know I mean, to be fair, it fits in perfectly with all of Crisis, everything being post-Crisis, because we're slowly learning like all the ins and outs of like how different things are pre and post Crisis, so it kind of fits in that same vein. And so it's actually, this storyline popping up is actually perfectly aligned with a lot of stuff that the other shows are kind of dealing with. But nevertheless, it was interesting too, because Behrad apparently hasn't told his family what he's up to, because it's like, right, because Zarya never had to worry about that because her family was gone at the time. So it's like, right, I was like, that's so interesting. And so it's like, he's bringing Nate along to be like, yo, Nate's like my professor and everything, which obviously Nate, is and everything, but is a good cover, and meets the family and everything. Oh, it's nice. Also, because apparently they don't know that he actually has the totem. Apparently it got stolen. Kind of even a little bit later on when it's like, oh yeah, how do you know about, because they're asking Nate, how do you know about the totem? He's like, oh yeah, and it's just like, Behrad's like, yeah, I told him about it. It's like, I'm sad, every day that it's gone, it was stolen and everything. It's like, oh, so they think some random person has it, because I mean, he doesn't want his family really know what he's up to. Like I said, it's so interesting because like literally no one else in the Legends has to worry about that. He said, because the only other person that had that was Stein, but even then Stein, like his wife was, and eventually daughter, knew what he was up to. Which I guess that's something they're never going to circle back to, Lily, in any shape or form. I don't know if that's ever going to become a thing or not. I mean, because obviously the last time we saw Jax was season 3's finale, because he went off and started his own family. I mean, what about Kuasa in this continuity? What about, her and Mari, like, Vixen, like, where do they stand in the grand scheme of, stuff like that kind of crosses your mind. Like, stuff that exists in this continuity that we were just not necessarily dealing with or bringing back to the forefront. I mean, they could always circle back around, especially after Crisis, in some shape or form, to find out things might be different. We'll see in the long run. But aside from all of that, like, it was neat him meeting Zari, and it's like, oh, Zari's kind of like a socialite, which is so interesting because it's actually perfect timing, because obviously, like, in episode 9 of season 8 of Arrow, this is Mia, who didn't remember everything from Crisis until, like, obviously, like, Laurel showed up and changed that. Well, I think it's interesting because, like, Mia was kind of similar, living a similar life, and it's so interesting seeing Zari like that, because for one, even the way she talks and how she sounds, like, her voice is different, because I feel like because she's kind of like, it's supposed to be kind of like almost like, oh, like, I'm so a little like, oh my god, I'm a ditzy like influencer type of thing, like a stereotypical ditzy influencer is kind of what they're kind of going for her. And even just the way she talks is so different, because like Zari from before would always talk lower and more calm, but she's like, oh, like, hey guys, hey, like I said, she's playing a stereotype. So it's like, it's really interesting to even pick up on little details like that. But like I said, I just think it's interesting that Mia and Zari are kind of like that, because Zari's a more extreme version of kind of what was happening with Mia. Mia was a socialite herself under different circumstances. But it's kind of interesting to think about, because it's like, because I was like, right. They're from 2040. I mean, granted, they're from present day, but obviously Zari present day is a little girl. We obviously know that. She's popped up before. I think, wasn't it season 3 when she first popped up, or was season 4 the first time she popped up as they met her as a little girl? I think it was season 4. Regardless, like I said, tangent and all that. But it's just interesting. I mean, to be fair, it is 4 years apart, because everything with Mia potentially in Canaries is going to be in 2040. Obviously, this is 2044, but obviously it's still around the corner, which also means that everything with Argus being bad, it makes you wonder what led to Argus being bad like it was in the original, like, 2043 from season 3. Like, what made them turn into that? Makes you wonder, maybe different leadership or something, like something went wrong that led to that. I don't know. It was, it's crossing my mind, but nevertheless, but Nate is staring at her, realizing, like, holy crap, this is her, and he brings it up to Barrett. It's like, your sister, like, whatever, like, dent we made in time at Hayworld, your sister's that dent. And obviously, like, she's kind of trying to get close to Nate, because she's like, yeah, there's something going on here that you're not really explaining me, you're not telling me about. And Nate's almost about to spill the beans, but Bayrod shows up in time to shut him up, because it's like, dude, I told you that's my sister, man. She's very good at manipulating people and stuff like that. But she figures things out, because she's like, I thought I recognized you, Nate. He's like, oh, from the Wave Rider? She's like, what's a Wave Rider? It's like, no, from Hayworld. This was from like 20 years ago, and yet you, Bayrod, you were there, and Nate, you were there, and you look exactly the same. What's going on here? All right, let's explain it to Mom and Dad. They open up a portal to the Wave Rider, and it's like, whoa, Zari getting everything thrown at her, and it's going to be an interesting discussion next episode to see, like, ultimately where all this is taking us. I wasn't expecting this storyline to pick up as fast as it did, like, us immediately like, oh, and here's Zari, because I didn't know if he was necessarily ever going to piece it together, because I thought, hey, Bayrod's going to go off with his family, but Nate's never going to put 2 and 2 together. That's what I was kind of thinking, but now it's like, okay, like, what's also going to be interesting, it's like, it's very similar to how, like, obviously the actress who played Amaya, how she is now obviously playing Charlie, a very different version, almost like playing the same character but a different version. Now Zari's doing the same thing, which is very interesting. Like, people connected to the wind totem are kind of like that. It's so fascinating. So I'm interested to see, like, oh, when the conversations are all done and everything, like, what's that whole deal going to turn into? Side note, I almost forgot to talk about it too. The new intro, like, yo, I was like, wait, what? That's so cool. I meant to talk about it too, because The Flash has one as well. I'm like, is every other show going to get one? Or is this just supposed to be like a one-off thing of, like, I don't know. It might just be a one-off thing. I mean, to be fair, like, Legends intro always changes, like, just because of the circumstances, so that might be an intro that they're keeping, but, like, The Flash had that new intro, because, like I said, I guess it's the one that's affected heavily the most, post-crisis. I mean, next to Arrow, but Arrow's done now, so, that's where I'm like, I don't know. So, either way, a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode. I'm so curious to see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.